Good morning, good evening, welcome everyone. I hope you're well, and today we'll be focusing in on our hips and hamstrings. We'll start class today lying on our backs. So we're going to draw the feet to be about hands and wrist distance away from the bum, and then lying down on the mat, letting the shoulders be nice and wide, relaxing into the mat, leaving the hands to rest into the ground beside us, or maybe taking the palms to face up if that feels good for you. Taking a moment to switch off from our day, whether it be just beginning or ending, and to settle in and assess how the body feels. Trying to take the time just to escape from our thoughts, so not expecting them to disappear, but just as they come and go, just letting them pass with the breath. Starting to turn our attention to the breath, so if we can, inhaling and exhaling nice and deeply through the nose. And from here, starting to scan our way through the body, from the tips of the toes through the heels, working our way through the legs to the hips, just bringing awareness to how we're feeling, running through the torso, into the shoulders, probably a little bit tense there, all the way down each arm to the fingertips, and then again up through to the crown of the head. And if you can, starting to lengthen the breath. On the inhale, letting the chest rise, the lungs fill with air, and on the exhale, just letting everything sink back down, perhaps taking the hands briefly to the belly and just resting them there as you feel the rise and the fall of the breath. And just continuing to breathe like this over the next few breaths, making each inhale a little bit longer, a little bit deeper than the last. Maybe even holding the breath very slightly at the top, the lungs full of air, before exhaling and letting go. With each exhale, just letting the body feel heavy. And from here, we're going to work our way into a little hip opening stretch. So we're going to take the right foot to the outside of the left knee, coming into a reclined pigeon position, taking the hands to rest either on the back of the hamstring or all the way through to the front of the shin. You can also just take the legs to rest on the mat here, if that feels a little bit more comfortable and this feels a little bit too intense to thread the hands through. So as we're lying here, we're thinking about drawing the left leg ever so slightly towards us and thinking about pressing the right knee away. So these are very subtle motions, but just the sort of intention of moving the left leg a bit closer and the right leg a bit further away, just to intensify the stretch sensation. And just using this moment to help us reconnect the mind and the body. So we bring a little bit more awareness as to the sort of movement and contractions we're trying to create. And from here, gently releasing the legs back towards the mat. So I'm going to take the left leg now to rest on the back of the right knee, drawing the left knee away, and threading the hands through to catch hold of the back of the hamstring, or maybe even the front of the calf. Same options as before, perhaps putting the leg down if that feels better for you. Trying to keep the shoulders nice and relaxed on the mat still. It might be slightly lifted, but just that action of letting them feel nice and heavy, relaxing towards the mat. Trying to make sure the breath's still nice and long and even. On the inhale, perhaps seeing if we can draw the right leg in a little bit closer, squeezing tighter. And on the exhale, relaxing that back down. And from here, releasing the left leg and drawing both knees in towards center. Let's start to do some little knee circles now, drawing the knees up towards you and then away. Starting to get a bit of movement going through the hip joints. Perhaps you'll get a little bit of crunching here, nothing to worry about. And then reversing the direction, getting nice and warm. From here, taking the arms out to the side, then drawing them back in, squeezing into a tight little ball, drawing the forehead towards the knees, and then extending out into a full body stretch, taking the hands overhead, interlacing the fingers, pressing into the heels, breathing nice and deeply, and then taking the arms down the side of the body. From here, drawing the legs underneath us and slowly rocking our way through to tabletop. So I'm going to take the hands underneath the shoulders, the knees underneath the hips. From here, coming into a few rounds of cat-cow. So on the inhale, rounding through the back. And on the exhale, slowly rippling through, drawing the shoulders down the back, gazing slightly forward here. If you can, moving nice and slowly with the breath. So not worrying about the speed that I'm working at, or anyone else if you're practicing with someone else, just tuning into your own body. On each inhale, trying to press up a little bit higher, and on each exhale, trying to dip a bit lower. Just finding those regions of the spine that feel like they need a little bit of love, and slowing down and moving a little bit more consciously here. We're just taking a few more rounds, maybe moving even slower for these last couple of repetitions. See if we can make everything move individually, each vertebrae move separately. And then slowly finding your way back to a neutral position, lifting the left knee and starting to draw some little circles. We're slowly going to make these circles bigger and bigger, so we're going to try and draw the knee towards the elbow and then just as far behind us if we can. Trying to work into the full range of our hip motion, making the circles as big as possible now. So just a few more rotations in this direction. And then from here, reversing the direction. So we're still on the same side, just now drawing the knee away, still keeping the circles nice and big, and then slowly making them smaller and setting the knee back on the mat. From here on the inhale, lifting the right knee, slowly starting to draw little circles, and then slowly increasing the size of these circles until we're working into our full range of hip motion. So again, trying to draw the knee in nice and close to the elbow, and then drawing as far away as we can. Lifting out towards the side as high as possible too. Nice big circles. Now reversing the direction if we can. And perhaps this side is a little bit more crunchy than the other, or perhaps moving a bit more fluidly. Just taking the time to work into the motion, and then slowly making the circles smaller and smaller, and setting the knee back on the ground. From here, tucking the toes underneath us, and slowly pressing back to our first downward facing dog, pedaling out through the feet, so drawing one heel up and then the other. Maybe drawing the knees in, twisting the hips, whatever feels good for you. Trying to keep the back nice and straight, the neck nice and long, gently pressing into the hands here, just getting whatever motion that feels good for you going. Then from here, slowly walking our way to the top of the mat, taking hands to opposite elbows, finding our ragdoll, letting the knees be nice and deeply bent, and gently rocking left and right here. Trying to draw the back of the neck nice and long, letting the head be heavy, and then letting the hands come down towards the mat. On the inhale, rolling up through the spine, stacking the shoulders, circling the arms nice and wide up overhead. And then from here, drawing the hands through prayer and folding all the way back down, taking the hands towards the mat. On the inhale, finding a halfway lift, straightening out through the back. On the exhale, taking the hands down towards the mat, rolling up through the spine. One more time on the next inhale, circling the arms nice and wide up overhead. And then drawing the hands in towards center and gently folding forward one more time. On the next inhale, finding a halfway lift, straightening out through the back. I exhale, folding back down. From here on the next inhale, rolling up through the spine again, circling the arms nice and wide, lifting the chest, and drawing the hands through to prayer. Exhaling, folding forward. And on the inhale again, finding a halfway lift, straightening out through the back here. Taking the hands towards the mat, planting them down and stepping back to our plank. Drawing the knees down, lowering the chest to the floor, taking the hands in line with the shoulders and inhaling, gently lifting to our cobra, drawing the chest through. Imagining that there's a little bit of string attached to the rib cage, but trying to show it to the opposite wall. Lowering back down and slowly pressing our way through child's pose briefly, and then back to our downward facing dog, lifting the hips towards the sky, tucking the toes underneath us, pressing into the heels. Pressing out into our downward facing dog. And then on the next inhale, lifting the left leg, pressing the heel towards the ceiling. Option here to bend the top leg, so we're drawing the left heel down towards the bum and lifting the left knee up towards the sky, then stepping the foot through to the top of the mat, finding our way to warrior two. So we want the left foot to be facing along the center line of the mat, the right foot is at 90 degrees behind it. We want to make sure that the heel of the front foot is in line with the center of the arch on the back foot. So you can use the center line of the mat here to help us. Trying to press into the outside edge of the back foot, gazing over our front hand. Running the arms down the sides of the body so they're along the center line of the mat, then turning the front palm and reversing our warrior. So the left arm comes up overhead, and then taking the arm forward to rest on the inside of the front knee and extending the right arm up overhead here. Growing nice and long through the tips of the fingers to the outside edge of the back foot here. And just checking in on our front foot here, making sure the toes are nice and relaxed and we're not clenching too tightly here. Then finding our way back briefly to warrior two, taking the hands to frame the front foot, stepping back to our plank, pressing into the heels, then lowering the knees down, taking the chest to the floor, hands come in line with the shoulders, inhaling, lifting the chest to cobra, taking 3 rounds of cobra this time, taking one cheek to the mat and giving the hips a bit of a wiggle. On the next inhale, lifting to cobra again, drawing the chest through, and exhaling, lowering down, taking the opposite cheek to the mat and giving the hips a bit of a wiggle. Final time on the inhale, lifting to cobra again, and then exhaling, lowering down, tucking the toes, and making our way back to child's pose briefly before pressing back to our downward facing dog, tucking the feet underneath us. And then from here coming over to the other side. So on the inhale, lifting the right leg up towards the ceiling, pressing the heel nice and high, and then dropping the foot down towards the bum, lifting the knee up towards the sky. Opening up through the right hip, then stepping through to the top of the mat. Finding our way to warrior two on the other side. So just a few more alignment tips here. We want to make sure that our hips are facing the side of the mat, and also make sure that we're again got that heel to inner the arch alignment as we did on the other side, and also making sure that the knees slowly tracking forward. We want to roughly sort of work towards a 90-degree bend in the front leg here. Gazing over the front palm on the inhale, reversing our warrior, taking the right hand up overhead, and then exhaling, coming forward, taking the arm to rest on the inside of the front leg, and extending the top arm up overhead. Reaching out through the tips of the fingers on the right hand, and thinking like we're arcing energy up through the body towards the ceiling, so we're not collapsing here, we're nice and energetic through the side of the body. On the next inhale, finding our way back to warrior two, and then taking the hands to frame the front foot, stepping back to our plank. Option this time to take a full vinyasa, so instead of lowering the knees down, we keep the body nice and strong, lower to 90 degrees, roll over the toes through to upward facing dog, and exhaling back to downward facing dog, tucking the toes underneath us, and then gently stepping the feet through towards the top of the mat, and finding our way into a brief forward fold here. Option to take the hands to a block, let the elbows fall out towards the sides, or if you want, you can let the hands rest on the mat in front of you, perhaps taking the fingers to rest underneath the toes and just using the toes to give the hands a bit of a massage here. Lifting the hips up towards the ceiling, and on the exhale, drawing the chin in closer towards the knees. And then slowly releasing the hands from underneath the feet. On the inhale, slowly rolling up through the spine, stacking the shoulders, circling the arms nice and wide up overhead, drawing the hands through center. On the exhale, folding back down. On the inhale, finding a halfway lift, straightening out through the back. And on the exhale, stepping the left foot back, drawing the knee down, taking the arms up overhead, finding a modified crescent moon lunge. Lifting the chest nice and high. Option to tuck the toes on the back foot and come to our full crescent moon lunge if you're feeling nice and energetic. Otherwise, just sinking into the left hip. So you want to make sure that the right foot is far enough forward here that we can feel the stretch through the left hip flexor. Just checking in on the front foot again, making sure we're nice and relaxed there. Relaxing the shoulders as well, keeping the chest lifted. Taking the hands down to frame the front foot and then drawing the legs straight, coming to a half split position. If you can't quite reach the mat here, option to take hold of a block and place it in line with the left knee here to help us keep balance, and resting the hands on that instead. We want to make sure that we're drawing the right hip back, then maybe drawing the chin in towards the chest, walking the hands out in front of us. So just finding an option that suits you here. Remembering that every day is different too, so maybe you might need a block today, and other days you may not. And then from here, finding our way briefly to the lizard lunge, moving the block out the way, drawing the right foot to the outside of the mat, perhaps even coming to the outside edge of the right foot, taking the hands to rest on the inside, maybe even coming down to the forearms very briefly. Not here for long, just opening up through the hip. And then tucking the toes on the back foot, pressing back to our plank position, and perhaps lowering the knees down, taking the chest to the floor, hands in line with the shoulders, inhaling, lifting the chest to cobra, and exhaling, lowering down, tucking the toes, and making our way back to downward facing dog. Remembering to take whatever vinyasa option works for you today. Tucking the toes underneath us, pressing into the heels, straightening out through the back, and gently pressing into the hands. Then from here we're going to walk the feet in towards the hands, finding our way into another gentle forward fold. Again, option to take hold of the block, or perhaps taking two peace fingers and wrapping them around the big toe. If we're doing this, letting the elbows fall out towards the sides, drawing the head in, lifting the hips up towards the sky. Always an option to keep a slight bend in the knees here. Keeping the breath nice and long. And slowly releasing the toes, rolling up through the spine on the next inhale, circling the arms nice and wide up overhead, lifting the chest, drawing the hands to prayer and slowly folding back forward. On the inhale, finding a halfway lift, and on the exhale, lowering back down, taking the hands to frame the feet and stepping the right foot back, drawing the knee down. Again, coming to a modified crescent moon lunge, taking the hands up overhead, and always an option as well to tuck the toes on the back foot and lift if that works for you. Pressing into the fingers, lifting the chest nice and high. You might feel a bit of compression across the top of the left hip. One thing we want to make sure is that we're not too shallow in this pose. We want to be nice and deep, so the left foot's quite far forward, making sure we're feeling a nice deep stretch across the front of the right hip flexor here. On each breath, see if we can sink a little bit deeper into the pose. And then from here, taking the hands to frame the front foot and drawing the left leg straight, coming into a half split position on the left side, trying to draw the left hip back. Again, option to use a block if that works for you. So we want to make sure the block's in line with the right knee here, or maybe taking the hands to the mat on either side, keeping the chest lifted at first, and then drawing the hands a little bit further forwards and maybe tucking the chin in towards the chest as well. Feeling the stretch around the back of the left hamstring here, so the very top of the left leg, or perhaps you feel the stretch even around the outside of the left hip. And then on the next inhale, we're going to slowly roll the foot back down and find our way into our lizard lunge, taking the left foot to the outside of the mat, maybe coming onto the outside edge of the foot again, and taking the hands underneath us. Maybe coming down to the elbows if that works for you, just sinking into the left hip flexor here. Equally okay to stay on the hands, only here for a brief moment, breathing nice and deeply. And then we're going to step back towards our plank, so taking the left foot to meet the right, pressing into the heels, and taking a vinyasa of your choice, so maybe lowering to 90, rolling through to upward facing dog, and exhaling, rolling over the toes, pressing back to our downward facing dog. Nice deep breath in our downward facing dog. Lifting the left leg towards the ceiling, pressing into the heel. Option again to open up through the top hip, so we're letting the left heel fall down towards the bum here, lifting the left knee up towards the sky. And then stepping your way through to warrior two. So again, left foot comes to the top of the mat, the right foot turns to 90 degrees. Nice deep bend in the front leg, pressing into the outside edge of the back foot, gazing over the front palm. And then from here, option to turn the front hand, reverse the warrior, left arm comes up overhead, and exhaling, coming forward, resting the left arm on the inside of the front leg, taking the right arm up overhead, extending through the body here, and then option to find a half bind. So taking the right hand to either rest on the center of the back or resting the fingers through on the inside of the front hip, drawing the right shoulder back here. Alternatively, you can take the arm overhead and just stay in extended side angle, or even lift the bottom arm, drawing in a little bit of extra strength. If we're doing this, making sure that we're twisted towards the side, nice and strong through the left hand side of the body, engaging through the obliques here. And taking the left arm back down and finding our way back to warrior two. From here, we're going to step our way into triangle. So take the right foot behind us, keeping the angles the same. My foot position is such that my left foot is around the top two markers, and my right foot is just sat behind the flower position here. Obviously, depending on your size, this will be slightly different. We want to keep both legs straight, maybe gazing up towards the top hand or down towards the front foot. Try and imagine we're between two planes of glass here, so we're not leaning forwards or backwards. And then option to come into our half moon. So grabbing hold of the block, if you'd like to do this, we're going to take the block to be about a foot in front of the leading foot here. I'm going to transfer the weight into the front knee and then gently draw the right foot in and lift it up behind us. So you want to stack the right shoulder on top of the left here and lift the right leg nice and high. See if we can find our balance. Trying to keep gaze on something that isn't moving to help us find our balance here. Then gently stepping back to warrior two, taking the hands to frame the front foot, stepping back to our plank position, maybe lowering the knees down, taking the chest to the floor, hands in line with the shoulders, inhaling, lifting the chest to cobra, and exhaling, lowering back down, tucking the toes, and making our way back to our downward facing dog. Tucking the toes underneath us, pressing the heels into the mat. And then from here, we're going to find our way into warrior two on the other side. So on the inhale, lifting the right leg, pressing the heel towards the ceiling, drawing the right heel towards the bum, lifting and opening through the right side. Stepping the right foot through to the top of the mat and circling the arms nice and wide, coming to our warrior two on the other side. Just checking in on our foot position here again and turning to face the front of the mat. On the inhale, reversing the warrior, taking the right arm up overhead. And then on the exhale, we'll find our way through to extended side angle. So again, making sure that we're nice and active through the left hip here. So pressing it up towards the sky. Option here to take a half bind. So we're taking the left arm behind the back, perhaps threading the fingers through to the inside of the front hip. Drawing the left shoulder back here and maybe gazing back behind us if that feels good for you. Perhaps taking the arm back overhead and lifting the bottom arm for strength instead. So we're engaging through the obliques again on the right hand side of the body this time. Gently taking the arm back down here, finding our way back to warrior two. And then stepping the back foot in, coming into our triangle on the other side. So you want to make sure that the left foot is still at 90 degrees behind us, the right foot's facing forward. Keeping the left shoulder stacked above the right and feeling a deep stretch here around the outside of the left hip. Then again, option to find our way to a half moon position. So we're going to take the block about a foot out in front of us. We're going to slowly transfer the weight into the front foot, place the hand on a block and lift the back leg up behind us, coming into our half moon. Keeping a slight bend in the standing leg here, just to help us build strength through the leg. Those little wibbly wobbly motions are just helping stabilize the ankle, making it stronger, and just making sure we're not locking out through the joints as well. Gently stepping back to our warrior two, taking the arms nice and wide, and then from here, hands frame the front foot, stepping back to our plank. Option to lower the knees to the floor, take the chest down, hands come in line with the shoulders, inhaling, lifting to our cobra, and then exhaling, lowering back down, tucking the toes, and making our way back to our downward facing dog. Reconnecting with the breath, pressing the hips nice and high. So if we can, starting to lengthen our inhales and exhales again. From here, we're going to come towards our pigeon pose. We're going to lift the left foot up towards the ceiling. Option to bend and open through the top leg. Then drawing the left shin parallel to the front edge of the mat, trying to square off through the hips. And then from here we find our way down to pigeon, keeping the chest nice and lifted, pressing the left hip down towards the mat, and then slowly walking the hands out in front of us, just coming to a position that feels comfortable for you, maybe taking the forehead to rest on the mat, or perhaps staying on the hands, maybe even using a block, yogi's choice here. If full pigeon feels a little bit too intense for you, then we can always come back to our recline pigeon. Then come to lie on our back and then just draw the left leg to rest on top of the right. So the left ankle is in line with the right knee. So just taking a pose here that works for you. Trying to feel the inhale through the back of the body here, letting the rib cage rise, feeling the shoulders move apart. And on the exhale, trying to sink a little deeper into our hips if we can. And then from here, slowly making our way back to our downward facing dog, taking the hands underneath us, tucking the toes on the back foot, just giving the legs a bit of a pedal out here, pressing into our downward facing dog. And then on the inhale, lifting the right leg nice and high, drawing the heel towards the bum, and then again drawing the right shin parallel with the top edge of the mat, finding our way back into our pigeon pose. Option to come down to the forearms or maybe take the head to the floor. Again, you've got the option to come to recline pigeon if you'd rather go there. So you're coming to recline pigeon, lying on the back, taking the right foot to rest on top of the back of the left knee and threading the hands through to wherever feels comfortable for you. And for those of us in pigeon pose, just trying to sink the right hip down with each exhale. And again, just using the inhale to open up through the back side of the body, so letting the rib cage expand, the shoulders move apart. And on the exhale, letting everything feel heavy and sink a little bit deeper into the pose. And then slowly coming back to our hands. If you're in full pigeon, we're going to find our way to lie on our backs, meeting those in recline pigeon. We're going to take hold of our strap here. And if you've tied your hair up, just making sure it's out the way. We want the neck to be nice and long here. So we want to make sure that any hair is out the way. And from here, we're going to draw the left leg straight in front of us, just letting it relax, maybe giving the foot a bit of a wiggle. And then from here, we're going to draw the right knee in towards center, give it a nice little squeeze. I'm going to take the strap into either hand, making sure the strap's just below the toes here on the ball of the foot, drawing the shoulders down into the mat, making sure they feel nice and relaxed, keeping the arms nice and long. So you want the strap to be just long enough that the arms are fully extended with maybe a slight bend in the elbows, and this just means over time we slowly walk our hands up the strap and maybe catch hold of the foot one day. And pressing the heel up towards the ceiling here, making sure our breaths are nice and long now. So we're starting to lengthen the inhale again, letting the chest fill with air. And on the exhale, just see if we can get a little bit more stretch through the right leg here. And then from here, we're going to take the strap into the left hand. Right hand comes out towards the side to help us stabilize ourselves. And I'm going to start to draw the leg across the body. We're going to draw the right leg as far as we feel the hip start to lift. So we don't want to collapse all the way to the other side. We just want to try and maximize that stretch so we feel around the outside of the right hip. Nice deep inhale, and I'm going to slowly draw the leg back towards center, release the strap, hug the knee in briefly again, and maybe rock it gently left and right. So just giving the right hip flexor a little bit of a massage here. And then from here, we're going to take the hands to either side of the mat, extending them nice and wide. We're going to take the right foot back up towards the ceiling and slowly lower it back down towards the mat. Hopefully the right leg feels nice and long in comparison to the left. And then from here, we're going to come over to the left side, So start to draw the left knee into center, and again just gently hugging it in, squeezing nice and tight, catching hold of the strap. And take the strap around the ball of the foot, so just below the toes. And again, as we did on the other side, just going to hold the strap so that the arms are nice and long and the shoulders are down by the mat. And we'll be slowly walking the hands up the strap as we get a little bit deeper into the stretch. We're trying to make sure the arms stay nice and straight, pressing the heel towards the ceiling, lengthening down the back side of the whole leg. And then we're going to take the strap into the right hand, left arm comes out to the side again, and then slowly drawing the left leg until we feel the left hip start to lift. And that's the point where we stop. So we've only slightly come across the body. We're just trying to intensify the stretch on the outside of the left hip here. Then slowly coming back towards center, I'm going to release the strap and draw the knee back in. And again slowly hugging the knee in and just gently rocking it left and right, giving the hip flexor a little bit of a massage on the left hand side. And then taking her hands back down towards the mat here, extending the left leg back up towards the ceiling and slowly letting it come down towards the ground. Interlacing the fingers, lifting them up overhead, coming into a last full body stretch, pressing out through the heels, through the fingers, and then gently letting the arms come to rest down the sides of the body here. Finding our way to Shavasana, a final position of rest, perhaps taking the soles of the feet together and letting the knees come out towards the sides here as another option. You can take the hands to rest on the inside of the thighs too if that feels good for you, or just stay lying where you are. Trying to relax through the whole body, letting the fingers relax all the way up the arms. Trying to relax the shoulders, let them be heavy into the mat. Relaxing the back of the head, the muscles in the face. Then working our way down the body, letting go of any tension in the hips. And all the way down into the way we hold our feet. So trying to relax the toes here too. If you do have time, just pause the clip and stay here for a longer Shavasana. If not, just getting ready to roll over onto one side. So drawing the knees together and just coming to rest on the side of the mat. Taking a nice deep breath and then slowly pressing your way back up towards seated, gently rocking left and right, growing nice and tall through the spine, rolling the shoulders up, back and down. And then from here on the inhale, taking the hands to prayer, lifting the chest, and on the exhale, bowing the head. Namaste.